Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are again, and we've got something new for you this week. What we're doing is we're starting to look at the, as we call it, the Eva Editors Cup. So it's a series of episodes where we take a closer look at the stories and the messages that align with our industry's innovation, leadership, challenges and successes. And we've got Paul Eden, our editor. So we're going to meet with him very, very shortly. And hope you enjoy it. And we'll just be going through the magazine and picking out certain interesting stories. But I'm basically going to try and get into the mind, the heart, and the soul of an editor. What makes him tick? How does he plan? What does he do? And what are the objectives of why he's doing it? So, Paul, no pressure, my friend, but over to you. And welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. Thank you for having me. I noticed in your introduction there, you mentioned we'd be picking out some interesting stories. Of course, they're all interesting stories. So, we probably need a couple of hours to do justice to that. But let's do a quick job then. You just pick out maybe the stories that interest you particularly. Let's go with that.
There you go. Now you flipped that one straight back on me, so I love it. Now, one of the things, and I was going to steal your thunder here, but I can't because I'm such a decent fella, and it's my birthday tomorrow. So you said that when you look at a magazine, it's like an artist who's created an album, and that artist puts the sequence of the songs as he thinks they should be listened to. And as we know, and especially with today's age of social media, you can flip and you can just go into something that you particularly like. You can keep replaying it. You can keep focusing on it. So I'm going to keep in line with the magazine as it is, but there are certain things that leap out at me. And I'm going to ask you, are these tracks in the order? Which one do you think is going to be a greatest hit?
Yeah.
Also, some of the things as to how did you decide to put them in that order and why, etc. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely works for me. Yep. Let's take the album apart.
So Salem's given me control of the screen, which he doesn't do very often. So Paul, if you don't mind, now a few little questions. So I'm assuming, like with any album, with any storybook, with any film, the front cover, the big impact, that's something that you spend a lot of time with.
Absolutely it is. And you mentioned earlier your respect for the words. Well, to be honest, no one's going to pick a magazine up because of the words in it. They're going to pick it up because of that cover, because of the images. People tend to see it. Let's imagine that this was a trade show or an FBO, something like that.
Yep.
People see a variety of magazines and they will just shuffle through them on the basis more or less of what they see. That instant decision, hey, I love that image. I like that person. He looks cool. She looks good. Yep. We'll pick that one up. We'll flick through. We'll look at the images inside. We like the images inside. Then we might think about reading some words. So while I would love to say to you, yeah, this is all about the words, in the first instance, it's actually all about the pictures. And the cover has to just catch people's imagination. They need to look and think, what's that about? What does that guy do? What's the story? Yep. So yeah, the cover is super important. A nice, simple image is always best as well. And hopefully here we've got a really great example of that.
Yep. And it's amazing. You don't get a second chance at a first impression. So something really has to catch you. Now you've got Dave Glenn on here at SVP Customer Operations. And I like what's written underneath it because that would catch mine, which is not just that it's Gogo Business Aviation, which I like the name anyhow, but it's also building good business. And I think the way things are going today with so many messages, and now people have, they've gravitated towards this build back better. And I really like that because, the build back better, I always felt that meant that something had been demolished or it wasn't good enough. And then bounce back better is what we're expecting. But, if you drop a ball, it's going to bounce back automatically. So this build back better gives the message that somebody is really thinking about it and they're doing something in a certain way. And I also like to add, make it matter, because everybody now should be reflecting on so many things that they weren't focusing on before this pandemic, which this pandemic has made everybody now start to realize. So to see something building good business, that would interest me. And obviously Gogo, it's got different connotations, which would also make me interested. But he looks a smart man. I like the way he's turned out there. He looks like his children, his wife, everybody associated with his family will say, do you know something? I'd like a picture of that on the mantelpiece or on the fireplace. So now, as we open up and we think to ourselves, right, again, the way you choose, obviously, and you've linked the Gogo Business Aviation Fly Smarter to be seen on the inside of the cover as well. So there's a strategy there.
Indeed. Yeah, there's always a strategy. I mean, you know, there are ideal ways from an editor's point of view, the way that you lay out the magazine. There's always an element of compromise, just as there would be with an album. You know, you go to your record producer, you say, I want it in this order. They can say, actually, you know, the single needs to be the first or second track, inevitably. So there is always an element of compromise there. I've never worked on a magazine that doesn't have its advertising inside front cover, inside back, outside back, just because they are the prime positions. And, you know, every magazine, it needs its revenue. So we have to make sure we place those adverts properly, really, to ensure we're doing a good job for the people who are going to see those, but also for the people who are placing them. You know, that's a really important spot to have right there. It does tie in with the cover. That's really nice. And then hopefully we then go on to do that company justice in a different way within the article. That's what it's all about. It's not about repeating an advert. It's about telling the story behind that company.
Yeah, no, and that's brilliant. Now, talking about advertising, and you hit the nail on the head there. For anybody to put so much time and effort into articles, magazines, whether it's online or hardback, it takes time, it takes dedication, it takes an engagement and a love of that particular subject matter. So advertising is so important. Now, obviously, you've got different types of advertising. You've got those that are regulars who always want to be associated with the industry, keep their name, keep their brand, you know, in line with everybody who's reading. And then you've got people who come in every now and again. How do you advise people on the best way to serve their own advertising strategy or tactics?
Yeah, you know, it does depend very much on the company. As you say, we have some of the major players who will just take out a series of advertising places. You get others who really are looking to reach quite often a niche audience, usually with a niche product as well. And for them, perhaps it's more a balance of, you know, maybe we can have something in print for a few editions, and then maybe we need to do something online as well, so that we're covering all our bases, because online obviously is more important all the time, but also in print, you know, an LP record really feels quite nice when you pick it up. A magazine feels like something in your hand. It feels substantial. Digital editions are great, but it's on a screen and you're flicking it. It feels like your iPad or your laptop. It doesn't feel like a thing that's special to you, that's been crafted like a magazine. And I think there's a certain value to an advertiser in having that quality of paper and a nice, you know, the cover here, you can't tell here on screen. Well, there you go. You can't tell here on screen, but the cover here is nicely varnished. Yep. It feels like a quality product in the hand. And your advert then looks like a quality product once you open it up. So it's all about hitting the right spot for those advertisers, and possibly across a whole spectrum of outlets. Yeah, no, honestly, I've got one, as you can see here, with me as well. Yeah, 100% right, up to the nose, smells like a rose, absolutely fantastic. And that feel factor is fantastic. And as we've been talking about albums, look at how the vinyls are coming back now, and people now, you know, opening up their old collections and selling for great prices. I also think that if there's you know, a really good magazine, sometimes a collector's edition is something that's really, really worth keeping, so that, you know, in years to come, or you reference it. But you know, I think anybody who appears with a cover like that, I think they'd be very proud as well. So okay, yeah. If I may, I have a little story that I would like to digress towards about covers, if that's appropriate. So we did a piece, I'm going to say it was autumn last year. That might not be quite right, but we did a piece with Sherwin-Williams, a paint manufacturer. Yep. And it was about a company, I believe it's CNL Aviation, had repainted the jet that Marco Andretti uses as his personal jet, the Hawker 800. Okay, right. And so the story was about how the scheme was chosen, the paints were used, all that kind of thing. So I had some content there from Sherwin-Williams. I had some content from the guys who painted it, and also Marco himself responded to some emailed questions about why the jet was so important, how it allowed him to do his racing and run his career and have a family and all that important stuff. So we produced the magazine, we put the jet on the cover. the Andretti Motorsport Company, let's call it, saw that magazine, was so pleased that Michael, his father, and Mario, his grandfather, all signed that cover and sent the magazine back to me as a token of their thanks.
That is superb. That's superb.
Wonderful.
So you've now
Couldn't
got
do
that.
that
You've now got that framed.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that with an iPad, could you?
You couldn't. You couldn't. I'm thinking maybe myself and Salem, we're going to sign this one for you and send it back to you as well.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
I doubt that's going to be framed, Salem. Huh? No, but it is. It's moments in time, and it's capturing something special, and you know that's what it's all about. And I'm old school. I think there's nothing better than to feel something, read it. It's the same thing with books online. If I'm away, I love to have a book with me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a book person, very much.
Yeah. Right. So here we are now, inside to the right, and we've got the editor's notes. Okay.
Yeah.
Lovely picture of you there.
Yes.
And obviously, recognition for all the people that contribute, which is obviously a nice thing as well. Now, what would you say is your main objective when you write this short introduction to each magazine?
Okay, so the smart answer to that is it's all about giving credit to the people who have been included. It's about promoting the industry. It's talking about the current changes, forthcoming challenges. The honest answer is I hate writing that bit, because the people who I've spoken to create that magazine are all so individual, so excellent at what they do, so special and so interesting. I don't consider that I am. So it feels like a bit of a cheat to have that first page. So I sit there and think, what can you possibly write? You've interviewed Dave Glenn, or you've interviewed Roland Dangerfield later on, people with extraordinary careers behind them. And I sit down there and think, how can I possibly do them justice? So what I tend to do is do the obvious stuff you just said, thank people for their contribution, point out, the particular part of the industry they're working in, and then waffle a bit. And the waffle a bit this time was about how a few people have been saying, okay, business jets have been very important during the pandemic because people can be moved far more easily on the commercial airlines. But do we really need to carry on with them now we've got Zoom? Does Zoom or whatever it might be, Google Meet, is that a replacement for lots of that business jet flying? And as I've pointed out there, no one who I've ever been to see has lagged.
Yeah.
But lots of people have in Zoom interviews.
Yes.
So my point is, there's a place for both.
Yeah.
Excuse me. In a connected aeroplane, you can of course have a Zoom meeting while you're flying.
Yep.
So you combine the two, you enter into a whole new world. And so that's kind of the point I'm trying to make there. So every time I sit down and I agonize, and I always come up with something, and hopefully that's not too bad.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And again, not reflecting back on the fact that I'm old school, but I can remember when I started first hearing Zoom, I thought it was to do with Fat Larry's band back in 1983 when it was a record.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and I love that record actually, but it brought back great memories. But I think, these Microsoft Teams and Zoom and everything, it's definitely got a place, and it's definitely permanently positioned itself for the future, but it's not the be all and end all. And I love to be in front of somebody and to see them face to face. And I think there's an awful lot of people that are also looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, I agree. I have to say, it's realized some new opportunities for me. I've met some people I possibly wouldn't otherwise have done.
Yeah.
But I've also met their families in some cases. Had a little glimpse into the people behind. I did an interview with a guy whose 3-year-old daughter is fascinated by video calls. And he was like, okay, she's going to have to see you, otherwise she'll just bug us. So she sat on his lap and stared at me in silence for 3 minutes, and then jumped off and just disappeared. That was her satisfied. Yeah, extraordinary. Yeah. But it gives just a little bit more life to the story, really. No, so in that respect, it's been wonderful.
No, it does. You're right. And it allows access to so many things for so many people. So it's a fantastic phenomenon. It's absolutely brilliant. But the actual people with people is something that I value so much.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, and I'm not going to go through every single page and dissect it and ask you what did you do here, but obviously everybody needs content, so they got a quick view of what they need to do. And again, Mr. Glenn appears in the left-hand side, so that beautiful picture of him is really being put up there. And something that really interests me as well is now this full page advertisement there, but the tagline there, Germany and Arabic hospitality. Now, the reason that resonates with me is I spent 29 years with Lufthansa, and I've spent probably 15 or 16 in the Middle East. So of the two marriages of hospitality, one of the most unusual combinations I would have thought would have been Germany and Arabia. So it's incredible.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. I mean, Germany, of course, has tremendous aviation heritage, stretching back really to the beginning of commercial aviation. Lots of business aviation operators in Germany reaching out across the world doing extraordinary things.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Middle East hub for business aviation for various reasons. Honestly, it seems like a fairly natural partnership to me.
Well, there you go. But that's obviously why it leapt out at me. But as far as efficiency and hospitality and all the things that go together, when you think about it, within the aviation industry, anybody who practices it, whether it's taking off from one and landing in the other, there's a natural partnership. So it's just the way, like we are with husbands, wives, partners. You know, everybody doesn't have the same choice.
No, that's very true. But the thing that surprises me almost with every article, every conversation I have, is how aviation generally is a small global industry.
Yeah.
You're usually only a couple of removes from someone knowing someone else. You know, you just said, you know, you had a number of years at Lufthansa, for example. There will be people I know still at Lufthansa who were at Lufthansa that you know, and we would never have realized that until we had that conversation.
Yeah.
And it just happens all the time that people know one another. And it just makes the whole thing almost like a family, I think.
It is. And people often say that. And it also, like you said, you know, the world gets, the older you are and the more you travel, the smaller the world becomes.
Yeah,
and the more intimate, and it's a wonderful thing. And anybody that gets the chance to either be in the aviation industry or obviously experience it through their own holidays and business travel, see as much as you can, because my goodness me, what an incredible experience this world is.
No, absolutely that, yeah. And what an incredible industry aviation is as well. So varied, so many people doing such very, very different things. You know, often people say, oh, well, you know, mum did this, dad did that, they were pilots or they were cabin crew or whatever. But sometimes people just say, I had no idea, and I just happened to think, oh, how does the plane work? So I asked and I became an engineer. And you think, wow, that's just incredible how it can inspire that passion in people.
Yeah, and wherever a plane lands or takes off, all those zones that go around it with the different elements, the different competencies, departments, specialization. The one beautiful thing is, if you can do that anywhere, you can then do it anywhere.
Yeah.
And it allows people to travel, it allows people to relocate. You know, some of the places I've lived in and visited, I would never, ever have done that if I hadn't fallen into the aviation industry with Lufthansa.
No, that's absolutely right. Yeah. And I can look back on things that I've done and think, I was incredibly fortunate. What an extraordinary experience to have been with those people in that jet or that FBO or that hangar or whatever it was at that moment, to have witnessed that. And sometimes, even now, I'll be shown something or told something and it would just blow my mind, because I think I never knew that. I never thought that was a thing that happened. It's an industry that just keeps on surprising me all the time.
It is. And you mentioned their FBOs. My goodness me, they're coming into their own now.
Aren't they just? I mean, the FBO has always been a special part of business aviation travel, of course. Quite often something that you just pass through very quickly and don't really think about. Yeah. But the FBO is just the enabler on the ground, really, from, you know, someone arriving at the gate who can't get through security, right the way through to that catering, to that refueling, to that getting you safely on board the aircraft. And of course, in COVID times, we have sets of instructions that people have to adhere to. You know, you've got the journey to the airport, you've got passing through the airport, you've got getting to the FBO, the journey out to the jet, on the jet, and then everything at the other end as well. And the FBO is integral to that process of just speeding people through, making sure that journey works, that people are safe. And really, safety is always the cornerstone of aviation. But right now, safety through the FBO, maybe that's something we hadn't thought of in the past, but now safety is a watchword for everyone, everywhere.
Yeah. And especially now with the ratio of private aviation and legacy aviation, you've got, 10-1 with the touch points, basically, which is a huge decider now for families and individuals who travel a lot.
Well, that's right. And depending where you're traveling, how you're traveling, who with, there is the possibility that the car can pick you up at home.
Yep.
You go directly to the side of the jet, step into that jet, get off at the other end, car to your destination. You don't have to actually shake any hands or have contact with another human at all, if that's the way you want to ensure your comfort.
Yeah.
Again, quite incredible, and you can't do that on an airline.
Exactly. No, it's amazing. Now, just quickly going through here and the way you've listed everything, something that jumps out at me, and we've just spoken there about transportation, but you've got Reimagine the Range Rover. I would never have expected to see that in the contents on this magazine when I first picked it up. And then obviously you've got a nice ending, which is business as usual, only better, which is a nice way to finish off. So we'll come to the Range Rover in a minute. Okay. And also how the magazine finishes. So again, now we're not going to go through everything because we don't want to ruin it for people who desperately want to read this article and the full content of the magazine. Yeah. But building good business, great eye catcher. And I love I love this the highlighted area there. We can pick the phone up and say, you had a problem, but we fixed it, or you have a problem, let's work together to fix it. The reason I'm focusing on that now is I think the way customers expect to be dealt with now, and the way people should realize how customers expect to be dealt with, because of COVID, it's made people appreciate more, what you're doing when you're working and what you're doing when you're expecting service. And I hope that training and companies and leaders like Glenn, like Dave Glenn, I hope that they really make that come to life. Because there's so many people now going out of industries because of COVID, especially hospitality, some other areas that were up and down, and they couldn't have a permanency with their future careers, etc. They've moved away from so many parts of industries that we took for granted. So hopefully now the people that come in are going to be trained better, are going to be encouraged to deliver better, but also us as customers and consumers, we've got to be a little bit more patient, but also really appreciative of what they're doing for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely that. And the thing with connectivity, such as Gogo delivers here, is that for the customer in the cabin, if it doesn't work, that's it. What you're going to do? It's connectivity. You can't get at that. You can't possibly even understand that. So Dave Glenn's theory is the best customer service is for it not to break in the first place.
Yep.
But we can't guarantee that all the time. So if it does, let's respond really quickly and positively, make that customer happy by the level of service they're getting to fix that issue. But also, of course, because it's a digital world, they can fix most of the issues remotely anyway.
Yep.
So no one need turn up and fix it because they can do it remotely. But also, and this is the really smart bit, it's smart and it puzzles me at the same time. They can predict an issue or find an issue that the operator perhaps hasn't noticed yet. But then surely that phone call to say you're about to have an issue is a difficult one. Dave says not. Dave says people are pleased to know they're about to have an issue because you can nip it in the bud. But also, of course, his team have the pleasure of calling operators and saying you had an issue, but we fixed it and you haven't noticed it yet.
Yes.
Which again is extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's a new world of customer service to say we fixed the problem you didn't notice you'd had.
Yeah. And but keeping people aware and being open and transparent, that adds a lot more confidence and credibility and also leads to customer loyalty.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, and that's what Gogo are discovering. And really, this story, I've written about Gogo before. I've written about connectivity generally, and it can be a little bit of a distant kind of subject because you can't grasp it. Your phone works, your laptop works, but that's kind of your experience. So it's always tricky to illustrate connectivity as well. We've got the image there of the people using the laptop in the jet. Honestly, they could be connected to anything, really, couldn't they? You can't show the signal connecting to the laptop. But what was really interesting in this piece was I thought about the network, not the network in terms of what you connect your phone to, but the actual physical network. The pylons that are holding the antennas. And Dave, this is a case where I go back to the comment about some things blow my mind. Dave said, we've got 280 odd of these antennas out there. Some of them are on mountains, some of them are in deserts, and our engineers have survival training to go out and service them.
Exactly.
I just thought, extraordinary. Hadn't thought of that at all. I just assumed they were all somewhere benign and just did their little transmitty thing, and that was it. But no, these things need constant maintenance. So people going out there with ropes and hard hats and four-wheel drive vehicles, that's as much a part of that service delivery as calling someone and saying, hey, we've fixed your issue digitally in your jet.
Yeah, I totally agree, Paul. And also what you're saying there, doesn't matter how far advanced we get with technology, at the end of the day, people matter.
Yeah.
And once we can align the benefits and make people not worried or fearful of change and modernization, everything, if we can blend that and make people realize that if you can do more with less and quicker with accuracy, it's a wonderful, wonderful balance. So I think that's fantastic. Now, just quickly going back, obviously, we've got our friends there from Krimson, and they'll be popping up later on when we're looking at the African aviation. And Ethiopia, I've got a lot of respect there for Ethiopian Airlines and the CEO. He's a great man. So we'll come back to that later. Now, here's another one that stands out. I love this. Firstly, I also love the names that people come up with for their companies. So we've got Gogo, you've got Jet HQ. They all sort of give you something that you think, oh, blimey, that makes sense. But we go the distance to get you to your destination. A nice little play on the travel element, but also to see these icons of what the services are. Obviously, that makes a lot of sense as well. And again, I think the way you've balanced the two out there with the remoteness and also the distance and getting you to your destination, I'm assuming that there is a science to this.
Well, I would love to take credit for that. But let's be honest here, since it's only you and I. Some of these adverts I won't actually have seen until the very last minute.
Yeah.
So some I will know are coming, others I won't necessarily know. So there is a process there between the designer and our sales folk to say, okay, where's the best place to put this? Where does this work best? Yeah. I mean, generally you like to put an advert on the right-hand page because most people are right-handed, they naturally look to the right. So that's a fairly basic thing that magazine designers have been doing ever since there were magazines. But there is a process there that goes on to say, how well balanced is that? Does that look right? Is that the correct position to put that? And I'm not always involved in that. So much as I would love to say, it's all down to me, I'm brilliant, I do everything. In this case, I didn't.
Yeah, honesty is the best policy there. You'll keep the team happy. Well done.
There we go.
Well done, sir. Right, now, you mentioned about the dangers, and it says it here about, survival training, also rattlesnakes, etc. But it does show how far people have to go. Now, then on the other hand, you've got another organization here, ID Air, and I love their tag, which is your living room in the sky, which is also really catchy. So fair play to them as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, moving on. So still we've got the article from Dave Glenn, but also Pilatus there. Is there a closer airport? Yes, but only you can access it. Now, all of these messages, I think are so well linked in. It's fantastic. So, you've got Orion's Aviation here with this one. Again, it's a nice image. And pictures, as they say, tell a story in themselves, and they're better than X amount of words, like you said, but it just makes you interested.
Absolutely that. It's a great jet. It's a great advert as well.
It is. So now here's something that stands out ahead of the curve. Okay. Yes. And not far from me at the moment, anyhow, Farnborough, but the airport. So again, in everything we do, we want to excel. Great message. That's the message from Simon Greer, isn't it? Sorry, Gear, the new CEO at Farnborough Airport. Now, that is ahead of the curve. That's always a big statement to make, isn't it? Especially when you're coming into a new business or a new organization. And the only thing that will stop us is the limit of our own ambition. And just so you know, we're feeling pretty ambitious. Now, there's a man I'd like to meet and have a beer with.
Yeah, it's a great ambition, isn't it? And he's stepped there into a legendary location, Farnborough. Just word Farnborough in aviation terms, it's the air show, it's the birthplace of British aviation, it's all those things. and it's an executive airport. And arguably, if you look across the whole heritage of the place, it's an executive airport last.
Yep.
Because those other things are probably far more significant in the nation's history.
Yep.
He's stepped into that role in a pandemic, and he's still saying we're pretty ambitious. You know, the only thing that will hold us back is our imagination. Well, that's the way to come out fighting, isn't it? That's just superb.
Absolutely fantastic and fair play. And that's the sort of person that we need in this industry or any industry when you are coming out of a crisis.
Yeah, no, absolutely that. And the other really fascinating fact of that is that Farnborough became carbon neutral as an airport, I think, in 2018. And arguably, getting to that point is easier than staying there, because you've got to keep that up. It's a constant effort. And he's just come in as a new CEO and just taken that on board almost for granted.
Yeah.
We'll keep working really hard to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
Again, it's an outstanding attitude because there's no going back from that. That really is setting a level for everyone else to follow.
Yeah, no, it is. It's admirable, but also you'd sort of think, yeah. And you want to get behind people who give all of their people a vision, a journey, a storyline, and they're so positive about it. That's what people want when they go to work.
Yeah, no, absolutely that. And it's a positive place. You know, often this is giving away a little trade secret here. Again, it's only you and I.
Exactly. Let's keep it between us.
Often, you know, I'll have an invitation to go somewhere. I'll try and arrive just a little bit early so I can sit around in reception or wherever and just listen to what the folk on reception are saying. Maybe what the guy with the mop and the bucket is saying.
Yeah.
That's where you really get the feel of what's going on in an organisation. Is that gossip, that little bit of talk at reception.
Yeah.
And you go to Farnborough, and you find a happy place.
Yeah.
You find a place where folk are content, where they're doing a job in a way that pleases them. They're enjoying themselves. They want to do that job, and that's really important.
Yeah. You reminded me of a story there when you said the man with the mop and the bucket. It goes back to JFK and the space program. And he went for a visit, and of course everybody wanted to be associated with him and walk around with him and get their pictures taken. And they took him into the main building. And he's seen this guy with a mop and he's cleaning up and everything, taking no notice of him. So he thought, well, fair enough. Then they took him somewhere else. Then they took him to the canteen. Then they took him for a presentation. And the guy was almost there in every place, but he was ignoring the crowds and the cameras and everything. He was just getting on with what he was doing. And at the end of the day, they said to Kennedy, is there anybody you'd like to meet or anything else you'd like to see? He said, yes, I'd like to meet that cleaner who was in so many of the areas we were. And when he went up to him, he said, do you know who I am? And obviously the cleaner said, yeah, of course I know who you are, etc. And Kennedy said, do you mind if I ask you a question? He said, yeah, no problem. He said, what do you actually do here? And he said, well, sir, he said, I'm helping to put a man on the moon.
Yeah.
And for somebody, no matter what position they're in, to identify with that bigger picture, that reflects a wonderful, wonderful culture and environment to work in.
Yeah, no, absolutely that, yeah. No, I agree fully. Yeah, it's interesting with places like FBOs, and in fact, when crews take a jet away from home base, that they may only be one or two people who are dealing with a customer, but they are the face of that entire organisation in that interaction. They become Farnborough.
Yep.
And so to have that inspiration at all levels in an organisation makes it a very special thing indeed, I think. Yeah,
100%. And again, here we've got another advert. Okay, so that's, MCJ, my corporate jet there. But obviously, again, the tagline, which is consistent all the way through, avoid the crowds, go private.
Yeah, you see, that's not just an advert, because that's a Saberliner. So if you're an aviation nerd, and honestly, I'm a self-confessed aviation nerd, that's a Saberliner. That's like a Saber fighter jet with people inside it. That's just such a cool machine. We should move on before I go off on one, but Saberliner, take me there, let me fly it.
Yeah. Before you change the t-shirt.
Yeah.
So again, now this one I also think is something that all employees would like to see. People thinking of aligning themselves with a company, an organization, or a location. When you see somebody saying throughout the pandemic, we steadfastly refuse to make any redundancies. Instead, we have taken the opportunity to recruit new talent into our organization. And also some organizations that have followed a similar path where they cross-skill, upskill, new skill, reskill. So they give people a sense that they're investing in their additional value. So the more flexible an individual is, basically the more value and the more, the more sustainable their own mini ecosystem becomes.
Yeah, no, absolutely that. But there's something really almost all these companies I speak to have in common. I'll say to them, what's the secret that makes your FBO successful, or why are your jets so well built, or how do you operate so comprehensively across the world? They'll always say, oh, it's our people.
Yeah,
it's our people that do that. It's nothing to do actually with the choice of jet or where we fly to or our infrastructure. They're all important, but it's the people that make all that work. And I think valuing those people, especially now, is more important than ever. It's something that Farnborough clearly does, but it's not just the people who work on the airfield. It's, airfields have little tendrils that go out into the local community, and not just through supporting a local school or something, but because the folk who move into the area to work at the airfield, or the businesses they've supported.
Yeah.
A place like Farnborough, that would have been supporting businesses in that area, best part of 100 years, a century of supporting business just by being there. Again, it's another extraordinary facet of aviation that's so easy not to think about or to miss.
It is, and in obviously in what we're talking about, and also other parts of the industry, I think airports now can be the game changer moving forward, because if they take a vested interest in them being the head of an ecosystem, and everybody around also supporting that one plan, which is to generate as much business as possible and as much capability and great service, so it brings customers in. That's also great for the community and everybody else that relies on that business.
Yeah, absolutely that. And we are, I would suggest, at the beginning of a new era in aviation with electrification, whatever form that takes.
Yep.
We have lots of people saying, oh, we're going to have these eVTOLs, these 4 or 5 seaters that are going to fly autonomously into the city. They're going to operate across London. In the next few years, they're really not, because the regulatory hurdles there are massive. What they will do is they'll operate from places like Farnborough to places closer into the city, yes, but they will build a new infrastructure. They're going to be quiet. They're going to be quite fast. They're going to be short range. They're going to be limitations. But places like Farnborough are where those things are going to happen. And those are going to operate alongside the helicopters, alongside the business jets. They're not going to replace anything. They're going to expand something.
Yeah.
And that means that the Farnboroughs, the Biggin Hills, places like that, take on a whole new role in our mobility compared to where they are now. And yet their role now has already been emphasized by the pandemic, because these places have remained open. They've set up testing centres in some cases, COVID testing centres, which have served the local community as much as the airfield. They've kept commerce going. And for every business jet that comes into Farnborough, who knows what those passengers are doing? They could well be promoting local commerce, working with companies locally, or nationally. Either way, it's just great for the area. These places are just so important. Yeah,
no, I agree with you. And also, these places could be the connectivity that takes you to other more congested or harder to get to areas. So they could be a stop off.
Absolutely that. I've spoken to people who, let's say they come over from the States, they come over non-stop, they'll land at somewhere like Farnborough, and they've got 3 facilities to visit across the UK that day.
Yeah.
So they have a charter helicopter waiting. They get the work done in the day. They go back to the States that evening. Yep. It's a long job. It's a tough job. It's a very tiring job. But how long would that take on a commercial airline and maybe hiring a car or going on the train or something? These people just can't afford the time to do that. So this is a real facilitator for each one of those facilities they visited.
Exactly. And the brains that some people are able to manage and store, the amount of time that you're able to use that is so valuable. So you don't want to be wasting it in queues and traffic jams and in congested terminals. It's so important to get the best out of that time.
Absolutely that. And for those people to be comfortable in that travel. If you're expecting someone to come and do that kind of day, they need to travel in some comfort. They need to be refreshed when they arrive. They need to eat well on the plane. Otherwise, those things just become impossible. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And again, here we got another wonderful, very, very visual. So we got West Star Aviation, and what a stable of aircraft they've got. So again, it's a wonderful visual, and it makes people realise what an incredible industry we're in. It does, absolutely. Now, moving forward here, again, we've got Hadid.
And again, the messages that everybody seems to be, it's like a chapter in a success story, but leading provider of aviation services. It puts people under pressure by the taglines.
I guess it does. That's right. Yeah, especially when aviation services encompasses so much.
Yeah, exactly. And the aviation services are so different in every airport in every country.
Well, absolutely that. Yeah.
So now here we are again. Okay, so now we're looking at both super and versatile. And here you are, Farnborough, experience the different types of equipment and what's on offer. I mean, you must have thoroughly enjoyed the time there.
That was great. It was great just to be standing next to a plane again, to be honest, because it's been a while since I've been able to go and stand near a real one. And even now, after all these years, every time I do, I think, that's really cool. Yeah. That is such a cool thing. It doesn't really matter what it is, however big or small or a helicopter or whatever. It's always cool. There's always a little buzz of being next to an aeroplane. And even then, I went out to see this. We looked around the outside and then they said, "Oh, do you want to go in?" And it always feels, I want to say, a little bit naughty. It always feels like when you were a kid and you snuck into the toy shop when your parents weren't looking, kind of thing. It always feels like I shouldn't really be there, but hey, lead on, it's just so great every single time. So back at Farnborough again for this one. It could so easily have been somewhere else. They had a few issues getting the jet over because COVID was changing things across Europe. Yep. So they had a real struggle. They had lots of people lined up to come and see it. They had a real struggle to get the aeroplane in. It ended up being at Farnborough. Just going to Farnborough is great. Just walking into the terminal, driving through the gate is a privilege.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean.
And the aeroplane, of course, as it turned out, you can see there that the white aeroplane was the one originally they were expecting, but that one couldn't come across from Switzerland in time because of various COVID restrictions on the crew and what have you. So in fact, they got the orange one in from an operator in Germany, which I just called the Jaffa Jet because why not? You have to, don't you? It stood out there looking like an aeronautical orange, and I just thought, what a spectacular thing. And then they said, "That's the aeroplane." I was like, that is a big result. We like that a lot. And it was a spectacular machine.
It looks like it's been tangoed. But it's great.
Right.
Now, and again, another good advert there because it shows, like we said earlier, the different types of industries that make a living from aircraft and aviation. And JBT there, with innovation in vehicles as well. So you've got here the tow barless tractors. And again, the whole industry together is pulling each other along and pushing each other forward. And that's where this bring back better and make it matter, really comes into its own. So it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So now here we got another one. Okay, the SD Plain Simple antenna. My goodness me, the first connectivity solution designed specifically for business aircraft. I love the way people, they push themselves up to the front and they make themselves really under pressure to deliver. But I also like the Plain Simple. I think that's nice.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? And SD are all about delivery. That's really their mantra. So just perfect.
But plain simple, lovely. And especially for a wordsmith like yourself, you must love the way they use these words and messages. It's brilliant.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. So here we go again now, Jet Pano. Okay, so again, another nice picture, and it just shows what you can experience, if you've got the ability to do so. And more people now are realizing that it's not beyond their reach. So, it's a good enticement into giving it a try.
Yeah.
Beautiful picture there. You must also have a fantastic picture collection, I would imagine.
Usually I'm relying on people to help me out there, to be honest. But there is some great stuff out there if you know where to look and who to ask. And sometimes you come across a mind-blowing image like that PC-24 there on, I think that's a dry lake bed or something. It really can do that. How incredible is that? Business jet on a dry lake bed. Just amazing.
It really, really does make you think, my God. And then nice way for Farnborough, nice classic, looks good, ahead of the curve. And again, building themselves up to show that they're moving forward and always doing things different. Now we move on to the African perception. Huge market, incredible continent, and always being titled as the continent of opportunity. But again, here we make no assumptions that just because an operation happened in a particular way yesterday, it'll be the same tomorrow. So again, this message of bringing back better, make it matter, doing things different, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and these guys are doing that every day, because it does tend to change every day for them. So, you know, it's an extraordinary market that they're working in, where, you know, genuinely they can't expect it to work the same way today, but they have so much experience that they expect it not to.
Yeah.
And if it does, that's what's a surprise. So, you know, hats off to them. They're doing a tremendous job.
Yeah, no, I agree. And something, again, that people wouldn't recognize as being part of the aviation industry sector, when you see Sherwin-Williams there, and, you know, they're looking at the coatings, and again, to protect and reflect, you know, that in itself is giving another message. So
absolutely,
you know, anybody thinking of getting into aviation, there's so many areas that they can look at.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that Sherwin-Williams, director of their aviation paint section, she had no interest whatsoever in aviation, and certainly not in paint.
Yeah.
But that's the only job she's ever done.
Amazing.
It just grabbed her, and it continues to fascinate her every day.
Absolutely amazing. Now here we are, and we did a podcast earlier this year with Dawit from Ethiopia, so we know him well. So it's always nice to see a picture of people with such smiles on their face, and I'm sure because they love being in the industry and they love working with Dawit. So that's a little boost for him there. Then another advert here with Duncan Aviation. Okay, highly customized Global Express.
Yeah, look at that.
Huh?
That is just special, isn't it? You see, that is just a spotter's dream.
Isn't it, huh?
It's just beautiful. And Duncan Aviation, of course, they're kind of everywhere, aren't they? They're everywhere doing everything. What a company as well. You know, it's they've chosen that particular aeroplane to show what they do, but they could have chosen any one of many, many others, really, or cabins, or any of the other services they provide. It's another one of those companies that's almost bewildering in the range of what it does.
Yeah, and bringing change and modernizing, and, you know, and giving the new lease of life. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely that. And of course, that's what this industry is all about. Yeah,
no, 100%. So now here we go again. Okay, Flight Support, Best Fly. Again, beautiful name.
Yeah,
puts you out there, definitely puts the spotlight on you. But again, it shows all the services, and it follows the messages that we're trying to put out with aviation, which at the end of the day is an incredible industry with an incredible safety record and an incredible history that got us to being how safe we are.
Yeah, no, absolutely that. But, you know, it's a bit like Farnborough being carbon neutral. It relies on constant diligence, constant improvement, and the constant ability to look at what we're doing and say, was that as safe as it could have been? How could we make that safer next time? So it's yes, we've got there, but the work to remain there is probably just as hard.
Yeah.
So it's active safety. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. No, 100%. Now this is the one. This is the joker in the pack. I was so surprised to see this reimagine the Range Rover. I mean, I love them. I think what a wonderful vehicle it is. But what was the reason for bringing this in?
So let me tell you all about it. Automotive is something new for us in EVA. And two reasons really that it came along. The first was, you look at images of business jets at FBOs in hangars, there's often a nice car in the background, let's be honest. There's often a Range Rover or an Aston Martin or a Porsche or something within camera shot of that jet. So clearly, high-end automotive is going to appeal to people who also like business jets. That's kind of a no-brainer. So we thought, hang on, we'll pop some automotive in there. The lady who does this for us, Victoria McMillan Bell, she's been writing and driving for many, many years. She knows the automotive industry inside and out. You know, she can get on the phone to the CEO of wherever. She's that kind of person. But the other perhaps surprising thing that's happening here is that aviation and automotive are coming together in a way they haven't probably since the 1930s because of electrification.
Yeah.
Automotive is arguably a little bit ahead of where aviation is. Aviation has very different demands as well, though. But if you know a little bit about electrification in automotive, you also know a little bit about it as it applies to aviation as well. So the two industries are crossing over, and companies like Jaguar Land Rover are recognizing that. They're saying, actually, we can learn a lot from one another here. It's not just about we provide the cars that help move your passengers. This is about actually how technologies are converging here. And, you know, we've got cars with radar on as well, and LiDAR and all these other systems. Connectivity. all of which aviation has been doing for a long time. Now we've got the electrification as well. They're coming together like never before. So it's a really fascinating time just for the quality of the story to have a little bit of automotive in an aviation magazine.
Yeah, makes sense, and they do go hand in glove, like you said. Yeah, but I love them. I think they're an absolute beautiful vehicle. Now, ASE Group, I also love what they've done there as well, with Egypt's unique location in the center of the world for a fuel stop. And I love the clever way they've used the globe there with the red square. Beautiful. Nobody can take it away from them. They're bang on, or they're almost there in the center. So good luck to them. But that's a lovely advert as well. And we all know how important the fuel stops are.
Oh, yes.
And here again, continuing the importance of fuel with AV Fuel, more than a global fuel supplier, a partner in operational efficiency. I think there's an art in all of these adverts. The people behind them who put that message, that eye catcher, I also think that's a brilliant skill.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now, sir, crossing and dotting. A UK startup, Sentinel Aviation. This must have been an interesting story as well for you.
This was a cracker. Roland Dangerfield, who honestly could be from a James Bond film, couldn't he?
Sorry for me to interrupt. I've just got covered it. Former British Army tank commander and bizjet pilot, Roland Dangerfield. Now, if ever there was a character that needs to be in a film, it needs to be Roland Dangerfield. What an incredible name, huh?
Yeah, it's just great, and an incredible person as well. Just, you know, you do these interviews, and sometimes it's just a case of getting some questions answered. Sometimes you meet an extraordinary character. And in this case, Mr. Dangerfield, he is exactly as you would hope him to be. He was a great interview. We laughed a lot. We had a really good time. We went down some rabbit holes we never should have gone into, and talked about some stuff that I would never actually write. But still, the story we have here, hopefully, is fascinating anyway. And this guy did command a Challenger tank squadron. He reckons that's why he got his first job flying a Challenger, because there was a bit of confusion. But almost certainly he's pulling out leg there. But his aim here is to deliver a very particular level of service to very particular clients. And his ambition is to keep that to quite an exclusive arrangement with just a few clients as well. So he feels that he will lose quality if he offers his services to too many people. So he's being quite selective in what he does and how he does it. Brilliant. But you know, it's an unusual approach to an aspect of the business that is quite difficult to deliver. So he's just starting out. He says he started just as the pandemic started as well, and kind of the jury's out on whether that was a good time to start or not. But he's still in business, so fingers crossed for it.
Yeah, no, touch wood. And like I say, I love that where it refers to him as the British Army tank commander, bizjet pilot, and then the name it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And it's all about capability. So I'm sure if anybody can, Mr. Dangerfield can.
Absolutely. Well, we like that. Maybe he should adopt that as his new logo.
Yeah.
If anyone can, Dangerfield can.
Yeah. He's the capable man. Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And then we've got executive charter and aircraft management services. So Anala are outlining, the whole spectrum of what they're able to do, which again is an important service that the industry needs, and one that is developing and improving all the time.
Sure.
So now these three pillars. Did you want to cover them, or were you surprised to see what they were, or?
I looked at the website, the Sentinel website, and I just thought, three pillars, what's that all about? Roland was very straightforward in saying, it's basically everything else we do. We just sort of grouped them together, really. But he has a very wide-ranging approach to aviation. It goes back to, again, I suppose, what we're saying about aviation being so many things to so many people.
Yeah.
And the folk that he has involved and the services that he offered, they do divide into roughly three categories, but the extent of his ambition is huge. And really the three pillars, I suppose, encompasses his ambition for where he sees the company going over the next few years.
Yeah, no, I agree. And what you said earlier about him limiting his customer base and then making reference to, including private security solutions. I mean, that's a logical step.
It is, that's right. And, with his military background, he knows people who know people. And generally, he knows all of them personally as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just a case of him, hiring a local contractor that's been recommended. It's a case of him hiring a local contractor because he knows the guy, which makes all the difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, another man to go for a beer with after a good game of rugby or something.
Absolutely. Huh? Yeah, that's right.
Yes. Yeah, and then we got Helsinki Airport. I know that well because I used to do a lot of work there with Lufthansa. Right. And so they're now showing the Finavia Business Flight Centre, which is also important, and especially in areas that can have such terrible cold, as I remember.
Oh yes, I've been up.
Goodness
me.
Been
up there to Helsinki just the once, and I was lucky; it wasn't too bad. But I remember we had some unexpected snow a couple of winters ago, and folk here were saying, "Oh no, we have to close airports where we're struggling because we don't necessarily have the clearance equipment available immediately." And someone in Finland emailed me and said, "Hey, we've had 6 inches today, but we didn't close for a minute."
yeah, it's amazing how they're able to just carry on. Same as Chicago and places that are extremes. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And that's a nice segue into the next article, which is enhancing wonderment. And this is amazing now. So from the black painted jets, and the cabin design, it's incredible.
Yeah, these people have thought very, very carefully about the product they're trying to deliver and really the way it will make people feel. It's about delivering an experience. Yes, it is a way of flying somewhere, and yes, it is a kind of high-end commercial service, but really for them, it's all about the experience. And basically, they want your experience to start the second you arrive at the FBO, because they're flying this as an airline service out of FBOs, which in itself is fairly spectacular. And so as soon as you get to the FBO, you've started on your holiday or your break or whatever it is. It continues in the aeroplane, and really in a way that they kind of want you not to want to get off when you arrive because you're having such a good time, which I just think is just a wonderful way to think about it.
Yeah, amazing. And obviously Jessica took you through how, why, and what the reasons behind. And
she did absolutely that. So, it starts with the outside of that jet, which is black, and that in itself is unusual. We don't get many black jets in the industry, certainly not with black wings. That's the real challenge. But on the outside, they just have their corporate colours there, very subtle, just on the engine nacelle.
And
they feature again in the window. They feature as little points of reference throughout the experience. So the crew have a little tiny marking on their uniform that shows it as well. And it's just the constant throughout. But because it's so bright, it seems to actually dominate that all black aeroplane, even though there's not much of the colour. And it was a colour palette that was developed with direct involvement of Sherwin-Williams. So the folk painting this, which again was C&L, they said, hey, we can't quite get the shades right to match the corporate colours. Can you help? And Sherwin-Williams came in and provided that individual service. Say, hey, we think you need this red, not that one. That's how important it was to get it right. And then inside they've got a sound experience and a lighting experience and all those things that make people into that aeroplane and think, oh yeah, I'm flying with Aero today. I remember that sound. I remember how that light looks. And it's comfortable and it's welcoming and it's safe.
And it's so subtle. It's class, isn't it? Very class.
Absolutely. Yeah, really, really is. Yes.
Now I've got to ask you something here, because obviously there must be a huge reason and the best formula ever as to why you would put the most important advert on page 41.
Yeah, nothing to do with me.
Hey, the EVA podcast.
I mean, I think the podcast is obviously improving in quality all the time.
Especially with this episode, eh?
So let's hope we're setting a standard anyway. I like that advert a lot, to be honest, but it has nothing to do with me in that case. But brilliant spot to put it against such an inspiring aeroplane. So I do applaud that placing. I just wish I'd had something to do with it. There
you go, eh? Both class. I like that link. That was very, very well executed. Very well executed. Now here we are again, you just covering the story of the black jets and also the color coding, which is important. And then there's a regular advert. So Avia, the two lads, they're great characters. Your supplier for used, refurbished GSE and rental solutions. And I would imagine they're very, very busy at the moment, either in collecting stock, but they're a great solution for many people's challenges now. And again, another different side of the business. So now here we go. This is a great one. The future of the aerospace industry, the Dubai Air Show, 14th to the 18th of November. Been there many times. Absolutely fantastic. Great event. And please God, touch wood, inshallah, it will be in play this year. And hopefully these variants won't interfere too much. So anybody who's never been, it's a great experience. Anybody who's been, you will love to get back there. And hopefully we'll see a lot of people there this year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, business as usual, only better. So
Yes.
Get Hadid is delivering previously unknown levels of digital efficiency to the helicopter charter market. Now, I've had the pleasure, when I say pleasure, I was a bit frightened, I must admit, the first time when the helicopter service used to be between Heathrow and Gatwick.
Okay.
So you used to do that whenever, you know, when we went on staff travel and you needed to connect quickly. But I must admit, I really enjoyed it. Then, thankfully, I had the pleasure of going into one of the Formula One race courses by jet. By helicopter.
Yeah.
And I believe on that particular day, for X amount of hours, it's the busiest airspace in the world.
Yeah.
And it looks like something out of a Vietnam film. You've got that. Yeah. You've got them coming in from everywhere. It's incredible, spectacular. Yeah,
absolutely amazing.
So for me, helicopters, I think they're absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I love helicopters. I think, I'm guessing that actually no one who flies jets is listening. So I'll tell you, I think helicopters are the more natural way to fly. There's none of that rushing along at the beginning or at the end. You just take off like a bird. It's got to be right, hasn't it? I just think helicopters are so cool.
Yeah, true enough.
You know, and you mentioned there flying from Gatwick to Heathrow. That would have been S61Ns in the day, I think, like a big seeking, a passenger seeking. Very cool.
Yes.
We need to speak about that in the future for several hours. So I look forward to that.
Oh, very, very good. Well done, sir. And again, another following the sequence. So again, we've got ABC. And again, it's something that everybody needs to be aware of. Great opportunities here for the second-hand GSE for sale or refurbishment or lease, which is fantastic. And then we finish with Laurent Vallée, the CEO of Get Heli, which also they've got such creative names. I love it.
Yes, well, that's right. I mean, what they've set out to do there is kind of develop an app or a desktop system that just streamlines that whole helicopter charter experience with people who've been chartering helicopters for years, of course. But these folk are just trying to combine that personal service with that speed of service that especially younger folk, new folk to the industry are looking for. But also, you know, again, in this, I don't call it post-pandemic world, I call it a COVID compliant world. We're looking to be able to travel safely and quickly and simply, and these guys are well positioned to help people who need helicopters do that. Yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's incredible. And then, of course, the back page, you couldn't get a better more apt title than The Future Is Together. And, you know, collaboration, everybody's singing the tune. But at the end of the day, there's still a little bit of reluctance to actually share, you know, collaborate and do things together for the better of everybody. People are still a little bit protective. So I hope that those barriers will be broken down. But a wonderful title there, and the leading ground services provider in Italy. So Argos VPH, very, very nice. That's really, really well put together. And then we come to your closing page. Okay. Yeah. So, and isn't that a great image? Yeah. It is nice, isn't it? It is just great. And, you know, Primus Aero, they're speaking to me more beyond their company. They're actually speaking to me there about aviation and how it has changed in recent years, because how many of those folks standing there would have been as young as that a few years ago? Yes. And how many of them would have been women as well? Yes. Yeah. You know, I think that just summarizes aviation at the moment for me. Yeah. Happy, smiling faces, young people, lots of them are women, just perfect. Yeah, but I think all this you know, this diversity and everything that's spoken now, I think it's got it's good that it's been challenged over the years. It's good that it's where it is now, but things must be a little bit more positive now moving forward, not trying to eradicate the past, because that's something that everybody should learn from. But it's so refreshing. It's so refreshing to see
to see anybody, no matter color, creed, religion, age, whatever it is, okay? Because anybody who's on this planet has got a right to do what they need or want to do. But to allow everybody to get the chance to do something positive, get on with each other, and be happy that people are happy within themselves. I think that's what needs to be done now, because there's so much press. Okay, you're a journalist yourself, but there's so much press now that stokes the fire instead of calming things and looking forward based on what we've learned from today that we've experienced from the past, and do things different, do things better. And as it says on the previous page, you know, the message there, you know, the future is together.
Absolutely there. And you know, when we're thinking about diversity, aviation is a global industry. Therefore, is it not naturally a global example of diversity?
Yep.
And inclusion? It really has to be, because it's everywhere.
Yep.
And people are everywhere.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Okay, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's going to make me read this again. I've already read it once, but it's going to make me read it again from a different viewpoint. And if anybody wanted to get in touch with you specifically, and obviously Eva and the magazine, etc., what's the best way?
The best way to get in touch with me personally would be through the editor's email address, which is paul@evaint.com. And then maybe get onto the internet, get on there to Eva's website. Best place for you to go find out all about the latest issue. You can download it there. You can see the news. There's a load of content there to just get you interested and get you thinking about all this stuff.
Brilliant, brilliant. Honestly, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm going to look forward now to the next edition, and I'm going to try and find out to see whether there's any secrets that we can expose or any methodology or formula that you use. And I'll also be looking forward to the next series in the t-shirt range.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thanks a lot. Bye now.
Make sure you put plenty of screen on there out there in the Caribbean. Huh?
Yeah, I will. It's a bit hot on the back of my head now. The hair's not as thick as it used to be.
Yeah. Get yourself off for a dip down a nice pina colada.
I will. Thank you so much.
Take care. All the best.
Take care. Cheers. Bye now.